All right, good afternoon to you. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade. We've got some issues brewing in the Gulf of Mexico. It looks like a hurricane will likely develop in the Gulf over the next 24 to 36 hours. Yikes, not what you want to hear after Houston has already been hit by Category 1 Hurricane Beryl back on July 8th. So you're thinking, not again, right? But remember, the Gulf of Mexico is very large, and it doesn't necessarily mean the system is heading here. And there is some good news. It appears that this potential hurricane is not heading towards the Houston area, but there are some locations that will have some major impacts. So let's get right into your tropical update for this Saturday. I am tracking the tropics closely. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade, and I'm here to tell you about exactly what is going to be happening out there in the tropics, since we do have that potential for a possible hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. First, though, I want to get started with this Saharan dust. It has been on the thicker side out there, but we're starting to see more gaps, more areas where this dust is starting to kind of clear out some, disperse a little bit, become a little less dense. And that's why we're thinking as we get later on into August and especially September, we are going to have more of a potential for more of these tropical systems to develop. Also, we've still got super warm water temperatures out there in the Gulf of Mexico, especially in the northwestern Caribbean Sea and in the western Atlantic. In fact, check out some of these sea surface temps. It is super steamy and warm out there. Temperatures soaring well into the 80s. In fact, look at this temperature just south of Louisiana out there in the Gulf of Mexico, not far from 90 degrees. So of course, when you have water that warm, that means there is plenty of fuel to keep these potential tropical systems going if they were able to make it into the Gulf of Mexico. Guess what? We already have another tropical storm that has developed just in the last few minutes. Of course, so far this season, we've had Tropical Storm Alberto. We, of course, had some impacts from that one, especially some of our coastal communities with that storm surge and with the flooding. And of course, who could forget Hurricane Beryl? Beryl made history, becoming one of the earliest Category 5 hurricanes to form out there. And of course, it rolled right over the heart of the Houston area. It made that last minute curve or turn, and we had a direct hit from Beryl. Fortunately, it wasn't a Category 5 when it hit us, but it was a Category 1 80-mile-per-hour hurricane, and it did a lot of damage. In fact, a lot of people across Houston, of course, still cleaning up from the aftermath of Beryl and all of that debris that was left behind. We did briefly have Chris, which was a brief tropical storm, and guess what? Now we have Tropical Storm Debby. As of the 4 p.m. advisory for today, we now have this Tropical Depression 4 that has strengthened into Tropical Storm Debby. So a lot to break down and a lot to talk about. Good news is that this is the only system out there, so at least we're not tracking several, but we do now have Tropical Storm Debby starting to push away from the western tip of Cuba, and it is going to be moving off to the north and west and eventually make more of a turn to the north and northeast and likely slam right into Florida, likely the Big Bend of Florida by early Monday. So we do have this system that will be pushing into the eastern Gulf of Mexico, and there's a lot of warm water there, as I just pointed out, and it will likely strengthen pretty quickly. So I do want to show you where we do have a lot of heavy rain on the radar right now. We've already got flood watches out for Tampa, down in the Miami area, already under a flood watch, and we're getting marine warnings from these outer rain bands. You can see some of those yellows, reds, and oranges. That indicates very strong storms that are developing in some of these outer rain bands. You know, when you have a tropical system approaching or making landfall, there's always that higher opportunity to get severe storms that could lead to the potential for a few brief tornadoes. So the threat for severe weather increasing for Florida, the flood threat increasing for Florida, the storm surge threat, and also the threat for that damaging straight line wind. Remember all those large trees that were blown down or uprooted across the Houston area? That could be a potential scenario for parts of the Sunshine State, which will not be very bright with a lot of sunshine especially over the next couple of days. So I do want to show you the official National Hurricane Track for Debby. This is from the National Hurricane Center, and it is going to be moving at this point to the northwest around 15 miles per hour. Maximum sustained winds are at 40 miles per hour, but of course wind gusts could be even stronger than that. So it is starting to push away from Cuba. It's going to get very close to Key West, Florida, likely passing just to the west of the Florida Keys. Then it's going to stay just off of that western Florida coast, just offshore, in that very warm water, and it will definitely be strengthening, likely up to around 50 miles per hour as we go into Sunday afternoon, up to around 65 miles per hour as we go into Sunday night, early Monday morning. And notice it is starting to get closer to the Big Bend of Florida. You ask yourself, what is the Big Bend of Florida? Well, it's basically that area in between the Florida Panhandle and the Florida Peninsula. So the name basically explains itself. It's where the state of Florida makes that big curve or big bend there, and that's exactly where the models are bringing this in for a Monday landfall. Here is the other big news with this latest update. Not only do we have Tropical Storm Debby, but we also now have the potential for a hurricane in the eastern Gulf of Mexico by late Sunday night and early Monday. All of the previous forecasts kept this system as a tropical storm, but now the National Hurricane Center thinking this will stay over that very warm water long enough to strengthen to at least a brief Category 1 hurricane just before landfall. This is likely going to be Monday morning into early Monday afternoon. And notice where it is likely going to make that landfall, right around the Big Bend of Florida. So if you have family, friends in the Tallahassee area, there will likely be some impacts there. Perry, Florida, likely impacted. It's going to push north and east as we go into Monday evening and early Tuesday, very close to Jacksonville, southeastern Georgia. And then it's just going to kind of slow down and almost park itself for the next 2, 3, 4 days as we go through much of next week over the Georgia and Carolina coast. So you know what that means. When a tropical system just sits in one spot and just spins, that's going to mean a lot of heavy rain and big time flooding potential. So a lot to watch with Tropical Storm Debby, which, as I mentioned, is now forecast to become Hurricane Debby by late Sunday night and early Monday morning, just before landfall. So, like I said, the flood threat will be one of the biggest issues, the threat for a few tornadoes, severe storms, storm surge, damaging wind, that dangerous rip current risk. So if you did have travel plans, vacation plans to Florida, you may definitely be running into some delays over the next 24 to 48 hours. So keep that in mind as you try to plan things out. Also, if you have friends, family in any of these areas impacted in Florida, make sure to call them up and tell them to prepare, because this system could produce some fairly serious impacts. All right, let's go over watches and warnings with Tropical Storm Debby. And you can see a lot of colors on this map, but we actually have tropical storm warnings in place right now down around Tampa, Bradenton, Cape Coral. These are areas that are not going to get a direct hit, but I think Debby will get close enough to bring that chance for some tropical storm force wind gusts. So that Tampa area is currently under that tropical storm warning. Here is another update with this latest National Weather or National Hurricane Center update. We now have hurricane warnings in place for parts of the Florida Big Bend, and this is where we are expecting the biggest of those impacts. It's going to be right around Perry, Florida. Hurricane warnings in place. We are expecting Debby now to strengthen to at least a Category 1 hurricane by late Sunday night, early Monday morning. So this is going to be the area of greatest concern. Like I said, where the state of Florida curves, that is the Big Bend of Florida. But notice Tallahassee, Florida, right on the edge of that hurricane warning. So there could be some fairly big impacts for the Tallahassee area as well, especially if the system kind of wobbles to the west a little bit. So I think between Tallahassee and Perry, there will be a lot of heavy rain, strong wind, even down around Tampa. Tropical storm force winds can't be ruled out. So let's check out our Futurecast Fox model and see what it is showing. And it's showing this system quickly wrapping up, strengthening, getting its act together as it pulls in all of that fuel from that warm Gulf of Mexico water. This is early Sunday morning. It's going to be pushing very close to Tampa, just west of Tampa Bay. Then it will be moving farther to the north. Sunday night into Monday. Sunday night at 11:30 p.m., getting close to the Florida Big Bend and starting to make landfall as we go into Monday morning and Monday afternoon, likely as a Category 1 hurricane. Then I want to show you something very interesting that happens. It really starts to slow down for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Notice it's just sitting and spinning over some of the same areas for 2 to 3 days, and that's going to be parts of the Georgia and Carolina coast, and you know what that means. Like I said earlier, a lot of heavy rainfall in store for not just Florida, but for the coastal portions of Georgia and coastal Carolina areas as well. That was our exclusive Fox model Futurecast. Now I want to show you our GFS model, and it shows a similar setup. Notice on the western central side of the Gulf, not much going on. We should be a-okay here, but in the eastern Gulf, we have this tropical storm Debby, likely turning into a hurricane late Sunday into Monday. And once again, the GFS model also has this barreling into the Big Bend of Florida by Monday morning, making landfall as we go through the day on Monday, and then pushing over Jacksonville Monday evening, and then pushing into Georgia and the Carolinas for Tuesday, Wednesday, and likely even into Thursday. So certainly a lot to watch. We will be monitoring things closely. We are just now getting into what is typically the most active part of hurricane season, which is August and especially September. So the good news for the Houston area and Southeast Texas will be spared this time. No impacts expected from Tropical Storm Debby, but it is forecast now to become a Category 1 hurricane in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, likely by Sunday. So that will do it. We will be tracking Debby closely. Of course, check in tomorrow afternoon for another update on what will likely be either Tropical Storm or maybe Hurricane Debby by then. We'll let you know exactly what's going on. Keep it here and stay safe out there. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade.